In the meantime, if you remember Jaws, the famous line, we're going to need a bigger boat. Well, we're going to need a bigger room here, it looks like. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting of Thursday, June 20th. We've called the meeting to order. I'd like David, our town administrator, to read the agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item we have is the vote to approve or amend the agenda. I believe we might be thinking about an executive session this evening. 6:05 p.m. public comment, 6:15 p.m. a consent agenda that includes a $1,300 gift from Sherborn Fire and Rescue Association, consideration of an advisory committee year-end transfer list, consideration of warrant approval, and consideration of minutes. 6:25, we'll be looking at school teacher negotiations to designate a member of the Board of Selectmen to be the representative for those negotiations. 6:30, we'll revisit the fire chief in consideration of a full-time appointment. And 6:45, appointments of boards and committees will be considered. And shortly after that would be consideration of a sergeant appointment. 7:30, administrative reports will include a town administrator report. And to my knowledge, there are no selectmen reports at this time. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Does anyone have any amendments to the agenda here this evening?
I would request an amendment to the agenda to add an executive session for the purpose of discussing litigation.
I don't have a problem with that. We have town council coming after 7:30, so I'll take a motion to accept the agenda as amended with the executive session.
Happy to accommodate, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
So motion,
Motion to amend the agenda.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that gets us to our public comment section. So before we get into that, just a couple of ground rules here, if you could. Historically, when we do public comment, the board, in my experience, is not typically engaged in conversation because it's not an item on the agenda. We would normally go for, if there's an issue that needs discussion, we would put it on a future agenda. Given that I suspect some of the topic relates to litigation, we are unlikely to put the conversation on a future agenda item, and we are unlikely to comment, except there may be, if there are issues of fact that merit some particular clarity, we may provide that from this table. Otherwise, what we're going to do, and I'm going to follow a recommendation of our town administrator, to ask if you want to speak, to come up to the microphone, sit in the comfy chair, state your name and your residence, and have at it. And we do have a very full agenda this evening, so I appreciate brevity, and we'll be glad to hear and listen to everything you have to say. So thank you. Yes, sir, I got you. I'll get you next, sir.
Good evening. My name's Doug Kingsley. I live at 138 Farm Road. I'm here to express my disappointment and concern that the town on April 24th approved a gigantic cell tower that's going to loom over Farm Pond. I think this is in direct violation of the town's own bylaws. I point out that none of my neighbors that I'm aware of knew this was happening, and the fact that we can all see it from our property strikes me as, while you follow the letter of the law, by notifying the direct abutters, you weren't very neighborly by, I say you, the town, the boards, planning, zoning, by letting us know that this visual blight was going to despoil our view. I quote from your own town general plan dated October 2001, under the category Farm Pond Scenic Zone, which defines Farm Pond as a scenic resource, and I quote, "Farm Pond is Sherborn's premier open space and recreational jewel. Farm Pond, Lake Street, South Street, and 4th Street are all scenic roads. The Farm Pond Scenic Zone is home to many scenic views and has 4 of the 8 favorite scenic places identified in the 96 Open Space Recreation Plan. Quote, there is near universal agreement that Farm Pond is the town's most precious resource with breathtaking scenic vistas. This cell tower is, the decision to put the cell tower up was made with incomplete and incorrect information. If you read the decision by the zoning board and the planning board, it's clear that the members believed that it would be barely visible, if not visible at all. It is in fact breathtakingly visible, and I put into evidence some pictures, which I'd like my son to hold up. Some neighbors and I did a so-called balloon test, which put a 130-foot tall balloon into the air. There were a lot of witnesses of this. You can pass those around or stand up front. And then we superimposed we took literally hundreds of pictures, we have a few here tonight. We superimposed this monopole cell tower on the pictures where the height of the balloon is. It's very clear that you can see it from virtually any location on Farm Pond, the jewel of the town. A couple of facts that you may or may not want to comment on. I understand there's litigation going on here. The petitioner, a company called Insight, which is the tower company, did a balloon test. According to, and I'm quoting directly from the zoning appeals decision, based on this study, it appears that I'm quoting, it appears that the surrounding topography and tree canopy would effectively shield the proposed 130-foot tower from public view, except perhaps to residents on the far side of Farm Pond, where it would likely be seen barely above the tree line at a distance of about a half a mile. You can see from these photos taken all over the pond that it's not barely visible. In fact, it's highly visible. Another quote from the decision is that the petitioner and the town shall ensure that a substantial buffer of mature trees approaching 100 feet in height remain in place surrounding the proposed tower in order to effectively screen it from view. It's very clear from simple analysis that there is no 100-foot tree anywhere near where this thing's going to be built. The tallest tree that we could find and measure was 60 feet. A 130-foot tower is 70 feet above the tree line on the tallest hill on the pond, on a hill which I will point out is ironically named Mount Misery. I'm not making this up. I make a couple more points of fact. Quoting from the zoning board's own bylaws, 5.8.7E, quote, all towers shall be of a design that minimizes the negative visual impact and environmental impacts on the town. Section 5.8.7L, any wireless communications facility proposed to be located in Overlay District 2 shall be, to the greatest extent possible, camouflaged in a manner set forth in Section 5813C. Quoting from that section, it shall be camouflaged by location essentially not visible from any public way, patently not true based on our analysis, and B, not visible from nor located within the scenic historic resources defined in the 96 Open Space Recreation Plan. Farm Pond, Lake Street, and Forest Street are designated as scenic resources. It is visible from all of them. So my point here is that the zoning board is violating its own bylaws. One more point. In my humble opinion, this is a dumb economic decision for the town. To quote Selectman Durensis from a recent article, while the financial benefits to the town are difficult to predict, such benefits depend upon the number of carriers who locate at the site. Our consultant's estimate is that the annual base rent should commence within 12 months, and over the next 12 years, the tower could optimistically generate $500,000 in revenue to the town. Okay, so we're going to do this to get $500,000 in revenue. Now, I've analyzed in the town hall publicly available tax assessment data from the properties that are within view of this proposed tower. The assessed value of these properties adds up to $140 million, and these property owners pay $2.8 million a year to the town, every year. Over 12 years, with the rate of inflation that we've seen over the last 7 years in our tax rate, which is one of the highest in the state, these property owners will pay the town $45 million in taxes in the next 12 years to look at a project that's going to gain, maybe optimistically, according to Mr. Durensis, $500,000. That's a 90-to-1 ratio. I think it's a dumb economic decision to destroy our pristine view. And I can guarantee you, as one of those property owners, I'm going to be looking for a major abatement. So you're going to see less revenue from at least one of these property owners. My last comment is this. I went to the zoning board on my own, without my friendly neighbors here, on Tuesday, and I got stiff-armed. They said, come talk to you. One of the members of the board essentially said, I'm not quoting him, but I am paraphrasing, and there were people there who can, back me up. The board had the obligation to notify the direct abutters and the abutters to the abutters, which they did. And I showed them the pictures. If we had seen, we meaning the board, had seen these pictures, we should have notified all of you. We didn't. You didn't show up. The meetings are over, the decision is final, the appeal process is ended, and we don't have any ability to change this decision, even if we wanted to, go talk to the selectmen. That's why I'm here tonight. This is a town that you gentlemen run. Your boards have made a dumb decision based on incomplete and incorrect information. I think it's up to you to remand the decision back to them and have them go reevaluate it. You relied almost entirely on Insight, the tower company's analysis. The pictures that they took were, I won't say intentionally misleading, but they didn't take a single picture from Farm Pond. Every single person who swims, boats, kayaks, or sails on the pond is going to see this tower looming over the pond. And one last point. A member of the Communications Committee, a man named Jim Campbell, and I don't know if he's here, his son is on the board of the tower company. That strikes me as a massive conflict of interest. It was never mentioned in any of the minutes of the meetings or any of the decisions. And I frankly am going to talk to the state attorney general about investigating a possible conflict of interest there. That's all I have to say. I hope my neighbors will chime in.
Thank you. You, sir, I had you next.
Does anybody want to speak before me? Because I saw the flyer in my mailbox yesterday. That's why I dropped here. I moved from out of town to Sherborn mainly because of school and the
What's your
farm
name,
house.
sir?
My name is Fang Zhang. I live in 40 Cider Hill.
Thank
And I moved from out of town to here mainly because of farm pound and the school systems. We love the town. We think it's the perfect, well-managed. But I like to comment 3 points today. First, I think he already addressed in his economic decisions. I think the house value would go down, and because of this tower, because of the view damage and destruction of the town, and because that's the most important portion, attraction point of the town, where you can put in tower from pound. That's the first thing. So I already did the analysis of the revenues. Second point I would mention is if you travel around the world, I did a lot, and if you go to developing countries, any town they poorly managed or not well managed, they have the tower right in the center of the town, everywhere you go. That's a symbol of not well managed town you see around the world.
Okay.
That's one thing, point made. Another point I want to make is there's a new technology called femtocell, F-E-M-T-O cell. It's a technology you can boost your cell signal through the broadband. You don't need a cell tower to make calls. You can make your own cell tower at home. That's a third. So there's alternatives you can make without building the tower in the town. That's 3 points I'm making.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Heidi Giuliano, and I live at 54 Everett Street. I am here to talk about a different perspective. I do agree with the people that have spoke that it is, in fact, probably a very dumb economic decision. It is probably, not probably, it is a very dumb decision for aesthetics for our town. But more importantly, that is not being considered. It is a devastating decision for the effects that it will have on the health of our children and everybody that lives in close proximity. I have been practicing in the field of midwifery for the past 10 years, so I've seen a lot of babies be born. I've worked with a lot of pregnant moms. I teach childbirth classes, and I see a lot of placentas. And if anybody isn't aware of what that is, it's the organ that grows the baby and the fetus until it is born and detached from the mother. And there is a lot of supporting evidence and questions surrounding the breakdown of the barrier that separates the placenta and the mother and the baby. And this placenta, the integrity of the placenta and the cells that create this barrier that block toxins and things from entering into the fetus while it is in utero is being compromised. And there is very recent evidence that strongly suggests that electromagnetic fields, which are EMFs, that are given off from cell phone towers are greatly contributing to that. And there is a research paper well, there's several research papers cited in a very good report that I have here to hand out to the board and to some other people from a MD who practices at Mass General Hospital, and she's from Harvard, and her name is Martha Herbert, and she is doing amazing work. She's a pediatric neurologist, and she has cited enormous amounts of research that supports that there is a great link between autism and electromagnetic fields. And you will read lots of things on the internet. You will see lots of research studies that may have been funded from people that are, behind the scene that don't have good intentions here. But I will ask you to look into this paper. It's a little over 100 pages. It is enormously informative. It is filled with the biology and research, so your eyes are going to bleed as you're reading it. But it is really important that we all start paying attention to the damage and the effects that our children are suffering because of these cell phone towers and a lot of other devices. But importantly, there was an email that circulated suggesting that, well, if the cell phone tower doesn't go and disrupt Farm Pond's visual prettiness, that it would maybe be a suggested idea to put it at Pine Hill Elementary School. And my children are homeschooled, thank goodness, but I would not want my child or any child to be sitting in a school system with a cell phone tower in the parking lot for 8 hours a day. That is frightening. And so what I ask you all to do is to start reading and looking into this. And if you want to call or contact me, I'm happy to give you information. I'm happy to guide you to the latest research. But this is not an aesthetic problem. This is a major health risk for our community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like one.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Sophie Cannon. I live on 216 Farm Road. As I reflected on this today, what came up to me is that Sherborn has been protected for centuries, for generations, to make it what it is today, an absolutely breathtaking, rural, healthy town. And I feel like if we do this, who's gonna, we owe it to the next generation to keep the town as pristine as it is, as healthy as it is, and as beautiful as it is. I walk around on Lake Street. I see bikers. I see horseback riders. I know people come to walk and bike from Boston, from Newton. I've lived in Wellesley. I've lived in Newton. I came to Sherborn because I wanted to get out of dumb development. And now I learned that behind my back, behind a lot of people's back, these plans were made. And I want to stand up because it's not just the view, it's Lake Street. The proposed tower is 40 feet by 40 feet at its base. We have to get a permit to cut down a dead tree on our property. You're gonna clear that's the size of a house. Not to mention the vehicles that need to go up and down. And then subsequently, the cell tower companies are gonna have to go up and down. It's gonna ruin the character of Lake Street, which currently is the most beautiful street. So there's a view, there's a point of view from a distance and on the ground. Where in Sherborn is there a 13-story high structure? Is there one? So you're thinking of putting it in the most beautiful spot in town that people go to rejuvenate, to get their health back after coming out of the city. And it just makes absolutely no sense. And, you were at graduation, Mr. Durensis. You said our next generation have to do the right thing. Well, we have to do the right thing too for the next generation. And this is not the right thing to do. It would forever change Sherborn.
another subject.
Of course, we're open for that. Elliot?
Keep on this subject if anyone.
No, we're happy to have a
Okay,
distraction.
fine.
Thank you.
Well, could I say something on this subject
Absolutely, Paul. Feel free.
before we?
Well, Elliot, can you wait until Paul? Have a seat, but please, Paul has a couple of things.
Yeah, go.
There's a Bob Dylan song that says, one of the lines of it says, how many years does it take before a man hears people cry? Well, I hear the cry. I hear everybody here, even those who haven't spoken, who are here to support the notion that this is too much for this location. So first, I thank you for bringing it to our attention. The second is, I don't want to build this particular tower with this particular configuration, given the kind of opposition that I hear today. To the extent that we have to choose war versus peace, I would choose peace. To the extent that we have to choose between fighting amongst ourselves and trying to work together, I would choose trying to work together. So I think we need to take another look at this project and try and work with all of you. That's what
I appreciate the comments, Paul. Paul speaking as one individual on this board. We haven't had a deliberation or discussion about that. We do have an executive session this evening to talk about this issue and how we may handle it. I think we have a meeting tentatively scheduled for Monday night to talk with the plaintiffs and see whether we can find some happy ground. So we'll see where that goes. I do appreciate everybody coming this evening and expressing their concerns, as well as the professionalism and the respect you have for everybody here. I think it was done very well by all of you. And Elliot has to speak. I'd love for everybody to be sure to hear what he has to say on another topic, it sounds like.
I've been crying for 40 years and nobody gives a damn. So, I want everyone here tonight on their way home to drive over Green Lane. The road is a disgrace, and there should be signs up, no vehicular traffic until this road is fixed. It's a disgrace. And I bottomed out a couple of times in some of the potholes in my car tonight as I drove over it. And so that's point one. Point two, if you have any building maintenance money left in this fiscal year, you might get some of these lights fixed. There's a couple out here, but in the next room, I haven't checked, was there about 5 out in the next room there? And it's a disgrace. So I could go on all night, you know that.
All right, we're going to take the mic away from you then,
I've been
Elliot.
crying for 40 years and you don't listen, so.
We listen. Thank you for
thank
pointing
you
that out.
anyway.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Elliot. All right, is there anybody else with anything while you're here? Yes, please. Come on up.
I'll actually just say a quick thing first. In response to the issue about lights, I'll just say that the Energy Committee is going to, has a grant to replace the lighting with fire efficiency lights in all of the town buildings.
Sweet.
So it will be addressed.
Sweet.
Well, yeah, I might suggest we put the cell towers underground.
Thank you.
Hi, Darrell Beardsley, 54 Forest Street, and I just wanted to follow up on the health issues. And I know at one time, and I don't know if it's still in effect, but that one couldn't challenge a cell tower based on health reasons. However, what we're talking about is public land, so I view it as our private land, and that we can take those matters into consideration, I would think, when citing something like this. And it's near Farm Pond Beach, where children will be exposed, and I've also read quite a number of studies. Part of it is because I need to do that for my work. And there is mounting evidence that there are health effects from the towers, so we should consider that in the future, which would also argue that merely moving it away from Farm Pond is not the answer.
And you're speaking as a resident and not as a member of the Board of Health at this stage of the
Correct.
game. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell.
I'm Brian Moore. I live at 49 Farm Road, and I'm the Commodore of the Sherborn Yacht Club. I just basically would like to say that both as a resident and as the Commodore of the Yacht Club, I believe putting the tower on Farm Pond is a bad idea for many of the reasons stated already. I also believe the town would be setting itself up for a world of hurt when people start applying for abatements on their taxes based on the notion that their views were disrupted. I think that you make a pretty good case for that. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And we don't have any public safety officials wishing to speak about the issue for educational purposes by any means.
Sure.
You're a
Should I
resident?
state my name?
Yes, please.
I'm Rick Thompson. I am the Chief of Police in the town of Sherborn, obviously. And I sat on the Communications Committee and had some involvement in this project. And I just want to just correct what the project was all about. It really wasn't about cell phones. It had to do with public safety and public safety alone. This tower is a critical need for the town. We have some communications deficits, not just in the Farm Pond area, but in some of the neighborhoods that certain residents have sat up here and identified as their homes. So I just want to make that very clear, that this project was about public safety. I really don't care about revenue generating. I simply care about providing public safety for the community.
And didn't at the last town meeting, folks voted unanimously for the communications equipment you were seeking to put up on the tower?
Yes.
How much was that?
I believe 120,000.
130, yeah. Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right, well, I guess that's the public comment of tonight's festivities. I do, again, appreciate everybody. We're all neighbors here, so thank you very much. And you're welcome to stay, and we've got a full agenda here of interesting things that impact all of you. All right. All right, David, I think we'll go on to the consent portion of the agenda then. Patrick. Parker, how are you? Oh, they're building up some stuff, so, yeah. Maybe. We'll talk about that later, all right? Yeah, you're on TV right now. Smile for the camera. All right, good. Good to see you. Yeah, come on over. Good to see you. All right. Here's my homies.
Your fan club comes in and talks to you during the meeting.
Yeah. Guys. Yes, we're still on, and David's ready to, we're waiting on David to do our consent agenda portion of, we're 15 minutes behind, so we'll try to catch up.
Working on it. Working on it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, on the consent agenda, normally you would take routine items and just have one vote after you've reviewed each of the items.
Okay.
But if there's something that you want to deal with separately, then we would take that out and vote on it separately.
Well, we have this Sherborn Fire and Rescue Association gift of $1,300 to enable the town to get a capnography machine, which I really don't know what that is, but.
If you'd like the
sounds
chief to
important. Chief?
explain a capnography machine, Mr. Chief
And
McPherson.
the nice gift. So you've generated some money from the Sherborn Fire and Rescue fundraising efforts over time, and here you're gifting some to the town for this purchase.
Yeah, just like to point out, the Sherborn Fire and Rescue Association has for years supported the community in terms of, public safety events, open houses the 4th of July. And for this year's fundraising efforts, they went ahead and raised money for a capnography machine and for a rescue dummy. So again, this is a check from the Sherborn Fire and Rescue Association as a gift back to the town to help us afford this. The capnography machine was an expenditure that was unforeseen this year in the sense that the state mandated that we purchase this and put it in our ambulance, and that item is a $2,300 item. So when you look at this, it certainly was a generous donation.
Okay, well, it's wonderful.
What does this machine do?
John Dallas, do you want to explain that?
It's for the ALS personnel, advanced life support personnel. When we innovate a patient, we put this in here to show that we have proper placement of the tube and that we're giving them proper ventilation of it. It's a monitoring device to assist with our skills.
Okay, great.
And John, are the people that are trained to use this on our?
Yes, they are. It's actually it's a device that goes on. The paramedics and intermediates we have on the squad, we can intubate, put a tube down someone's throat, and this just clips onto the end and goes in between the tube and the ambule bag. And it just monitors the expiration to show that we're having the proper amount of CO coming out and that we have good placement of the tube into the proper place of the lungs and not into the stomach.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what you're suggesting is deal with them all together or deal with them individually?
But you can vote with them separately if you want
Let's
to go
do it
ahead and do
separately.
it.
Why don't we just do them
Yeah.
separately, because we're gonna get into reserve fund transfers.
Right,
so we have to deal
the
with
one
those.
that I would take out would be just what you just said, the advisory committee one, but the rest,
Okay.
I could
All right,
do
you're ready to
one.
go all together. All right, so the minutes, just so everybody knows, Thursday, March 14th, Thursday, May 2nd. I think, Mike, you were not a member of either of those, so I would move we accept these minutes as written. And also, I would move that we accept the $1,300 gift from the Sherborn Fire and Rescue Association,
Second.
as well as approve the warrant approval. So all in favor of that? Okay, great, so we can sign that. Separately, we have piles of stuff here. We have reserve fund transfers, and I'll list those out. We have $1,974 is a request for a transfer from reserve fund to the Norfolk Agricultural School budget. We have a request for $3,565 to transfer from reserve fund to the fire department expense budget. We have $12,000 request from the police department for a reserve fund transfer. We have,
I have
oh, wait,
15.
it's 15, I have two of these.
There are
So I-
two.
15 and 12.
15 and 12.
The
okay.
12,000 one came in
Late.
this afternoon.
Okay, so we have 12,000, and that's for the
Are those
payroll.
two for a total of 27?
That's right. And 15 for expenses for the police department. And the last one is library building maintenance of $1,650.05. I think that's all of them amounting to $34,189.05. Does that sound like the right number?
Why is there a reference to this 1964
Twice.
that was already approved?
Yeah, that's not a reserve fund transfer on this schedule, right? This schedule here? This schedule is an earlier version, and it's missing the 12,000, if I'm understanding what we're doing here. So we're at 34,189.05, is that right?
Selectman Giammo looked into this, and we didn't need a transfer.
That's correct. We're not,
I thought what his
Yeah.
work had shown, right?
yeah, so we're not asking that. I don't know why that's on this schedule, right? Well, our
And
town
it's
accountant's
just
not-
that was approved in February. I think that's
Oh,
was the
she's
last
showing.
transfer.
So that's showing how much it has been taken out of the reserve fund to date. Is
Already.
that what we're doing already? So only 1964. It's a budget of what, 42,000 or something?
Right.
So we're gonna get to 36,000 something or other, so we're not using up the total budget of advisory's reserve fund.
If you approve all of these transfers, then you would end up with a balance of about 7,000 at the
Okay.
end of the year.
Okay,
This is 34,000, what's the number?
$189.05.
Okay, move approval.
I second. All in favor? Great, so I'll sign those and away we go. All right? Great, so that brings us to the next item, which is Sherborn teacher negotiations, where we've been asked to send a representative from the Board of Selectmen to participate on the team that does the school contract negotiations. The contract runs out the end of next year, so a new one will start July 1st, 2014. I'm happy to serve on that. There was a list of tentative dates that was in the packet that has been provided by the soon-to-be superintendent. And,
Well, before you change your mind, I move approval.
Second.
it's one of these, again, it's one of these where you guys step back when they ask for volunteers. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, just we have great confidence in you.
Yeah.
You stepped forward as the.
I did step forward. Well, I look at that as an important thing, one of the more important things on the town's, facing the town. And I do have some history and experience through my advisory years on that topic, so that's why I said I'm happy to do it, as much as I don't want to spend the time at it. So here we go. Thank you. So next we're up, we're 10 minutes behind, but we're here to talk about the fire chief appointment, consideration of full-time appointment. I will say a couple of things. Upon the request of Selectman Durensis, who pointed out that having an outside independent assessment done on one or more of the candidates made great sense. Our now not-so-new town administrator was able to pull it off quickly and effectively to get the fire chief from Framingham and the fire chief from Natick to come in, as well as two of the candidates that we had identified as our top two.
Yes.
To come in for a few hours of assessment of their technical skills, their administrative skills, a variety of things. And maybe you can give us a synopsis of what that entailed and what your observations were there.
Well, basically, when these folks interviewed with the selectmen, we have a certain limited knowledge that, of fire activities, and this third-party assessment allows somebody from the outside to come in and give us some advice on what they saw and what they perceived. Also, in this setting, they're sitting at a table, there's no audience, there's no cameras, and it's mostly, the things you learn is mostly in the follow-up questions, where the chiefs who were doing the interviewing have that background that they can follow up questions of like, well, why would you do that? But they're, lots of times in running an incident, there's not a specific one way to do it. It's just, each guy could handle it differently, but you're allowed to talk about it more and flesh those answers out in sort of this assessment forum, which we did.
Yeah, okay.
If I could, just to add to that all the candidates were from out of state. And so I was concerned, did they know Massachusetts standards? Could they meet all the requirements that we would expect here? And the answer that I got was yes, that both candidates would be able to take a Sherborn hose and attach it to a Sherborn fire truck without getting it backwards. So they obviously said more than that. I'm kind of making fun of it, but
Yeah.
that was a concern, that what we have here, that they would be able to handle.
Yes, and both the Natick and Framingham fire chiefs spoke highly of both the candidates. They said they could both do the job. and then they elaborated a little more on each candidate, on the way they thought that the interview went, and then they provided us with a ranking, which was sent to you guys.
Okay. So the question is, I think what I'd like to do is, where we left it was we were going to make every effort to make a vote tonight, okay? And some of the things that we want to do, personally, I'm glad we got that assessment done. I think that provided a lot of valuable insight, to me at least. I'm not speaking for these good-looking guys next to me. The other thing I wanted to do is get a better handle on paramedic, and I wanted to also review the tapes a little bit. And I was able to look at the tapes of these guys running on Cablevision and on cable TV. And so it was good, I thought that was valuable to see that again. I continue to be appreciative of the caliber of the candidates, all three of them that were brought to us by the Fire Chief Selection Committee. Seeing them again, I picked up on a variety of nuances that I didn't quite fully get, when they were answering Mike's questions or Paul's questions and even my questions. So I thought all three of them were very good candidates, and again, want to express appreciation for that. So before we talk about them, I thought what I would do is provide for a little more input from the folks here in the room, okay, particularly the selection committee, because I know you guys are meeting simultaneous with us, as well as any of the other folks on that may have something to say about where we're headed. Then we'll talk about, see where it goes. I'm going to ask David for a little bit more of what his thoughts are before we take a vote up here, if we in fact take a vote. So how does that sound? I might even allow for, after we've deliberated a little and before we do a vote, for a little bit more feedback from the folks out here. Okay, so anybody have anything further to add before we start talking on our own? And I'd welcome you to come up to the mic if you could, because
I think they're all pointing at each other.
they are. So, Fred? All right, Fred.
I guess I just wanted to maybe reiterate some of the process that we went through as far as, maybe some of that didn't get picked up during the interviews last time. It was a pretty rigorous process that we went through in the initial selection, which started with somewhere around 20-plus candidates. We had a matrix that had probably 20 or 30 technical, administrative characteristics that we went through all the resumes with before we spoke with anybody. From there, we made a selection based on the technical skills and a number of characteristics that were important to the town, important in terms of what we had set out initially as the requirements for the job. From there, we developed a set of questions and set up a number of phone interviews with the candidates that passed the first screen. And that was another set of rigorous questions which led us to selecting, at that point, down to, I think it was, what, six candidates that we brought in for face-to-face interviews. And again, we had another set of questions which were, again, different from the questions that we had in the initial matrix, as well as the phone interviews. This was another 15 questions where we went into in depth with each of the candidates individually. And through that whole process, we came down to the three candidates. And I think, there were other things. There were some administrative skills that I think are important in the process. The technical skills. A number of us on the committee were, didn't have the fire background, so that we were more looking at the individual, the requirements of the town, administrative skills, and a number of other things, and that's where we came to the three candidates. But in my opinion, I thought one of the candidates was a clear lead candidate out of the three that we put together.
And that was Tim.
And that was Tim Morrissey.
Yeah, Tim Morrissey, right. And that was in large part because he has the paramedic.
Well, no, the paramedic to me is, as well as with you guys the other night, the paramedic side of it, I don't have enough appreciation of how important that is. He had it. He has, I think, a stronger educational background. He has, I think, a stronger set of administrative skills. He's very He's had a lot of experience in the budgeting, the financial planning, strategic planning processes that I didn't feel the other candidates had that same level of background. And, you know, a number of other things as I think you've picked up as we've gone through the interviews and your assessments.
Great. All right, thank you. Anybody else? I know Neil keeps pointing at guys.
Just a couple comments. Clearly, as we discussed last time, I think we've gone through the process and we talked about, or at least I talked about some of the particulars. I want to remind everybody, the committee did not go ahead and vote for one specific person. And we did that intentionally, certainly because each of these individuals has different strengths, different developmental needs. All of them we think can do the job. So although I think many people had a personal favorite throughout the process, and the finalist here, our committee did not vote for one person, and that's why we put 3 candidates forward, and now we're down to 2. So I just want to say I appreciate the difficulty of the decision. I certainly have my personal favorite, but of course, I shouldn't say personal favorite, the person who I think would be best suited for the job. But I appreciate the difficulty of your job, trying to take these 2 candidates, and I think the most important part here is for you as a committee and for David, finding the person who not only will be able to work within the fire department and the people there to continue and provide the leadership needed and provide the high level of service, but also someone who can handle that administrative portion of the job and work closely with David. And having had the experience recently working with him, he is Tom Brady. And Tom Brady. He is excellent.
Who's Bill Belichick?
I don't know, we'll have to work those details out later. But David is...
As long as none of us are Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah, I'm with you. So, but anyway, I appreciate the difficulty of the conversation tonight. I
Yes.
just want to point that out, and
thank you.
certainly I
Respect
will be
that.
supportive of whomever you choose
Yeah, no.
for the town. I think either person can do the job.
Yeah, we have 2 great choices. I don't think we can go wrong with either of them. I think that came clear out of the assessments. Anything else from the folks here? Otherwise, I think we'll take it up here. First, I'd love for your input, David, and then the 3 of us can talk. Does that sound fair?
Sure. I was able to see the interviews that you guys witnessed here, and I sat through both of the assessment center that we did with each of them this week. Researched some references, researched each of them online, contacted some places that they were finalists, got some background there. And there was one candidate that I had more comfortable with, and that was Fred Mitchell, basically because I thought he could hit the ground running. There wasn't going to be a learning curve. He seemed to be more confident and knowledgeable, and the other 2, the Framingham chief and the Natick chief, both commented on his answers, were very confident compared to the other candidate. And so, you know, I can work with either one of them, but the one that gives me the gut feeling that I have faith in that I would be going to that person for information and in assistance in running the town and representing you guys is Fred Mitchell as opposed to the other candidate.
In the assessment, what about incident command? There was something on that in there on the 2 of them.
Incident command, Fred Mitchell has more incident command experience. He was more in-depth in his answers about setting up hot zones, intermediate zones, ambulance staging areas, transporting people, spoke about an issue of transporting 30 students and a pregnant teacher out of a school because of some air quality issue or something.
They came up with a better hypothetical than you, Peter.
They came up with reality and hypotheticals, yeah.
So
It's not my job, you know?
I thought both of them answered the questions, the scenarios better in the assessment with the chiefs than they did here.
Yeah.
One happened to refer to their notes more, hadn't prepared notes, and Fred Mitchell had no notes whatsoever and just answered off the top of his head. And it gave me a lot of confidence in his ability to handle that type of situation.
Good, well, that's very valuable. How about you gents? Any thoughts at this stage? Mike, anything? I mean, at some point, we're gonna go for a vote, and
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
certainly share
I'll-
where I'm at, but I'd love to hear where
Sure,
you're at.
I'll speak. I wanted to talk first about the process. When we left this meeting last week, we did not have the program that David just described, scheduled, that was addressed after this meeting. I would have been much more comfortable having that in open discussion. I think it properly would have been discussed in open session rather than after the fact, and I wish we'd done it that way. It was a different process than had been discussed in front of the public, and I don't think that's the right way to do town business. Secondly, on substance, I haven't changed from where I was last week. I did watch the tapes again. I've considered what David said. I've also considered discussions I've had with, both after the meeting last week and more recently with folks who were in the fire department. I appreciate the value of the paramedic training, which is a Massachusetts license. And I'm less concerned about the ability to hit the ground running on incident response. And with all due respect, David, I think having seen both of these guys and read their papers, I think in the not very long run, you're going to get more comfort and help on the administrative side with Tim than you would with Fred. Which is not to say that I wouldn't be pleased with either one of them as a fire chief, but if I have to, decide between the two of them, my vote is for Tim.
Okay. Paul, any thoughts at this stage of the game?
Well, I put a fair amount of time into thinking about this. I read the applications. I looked at all the answers to the written questions. Written questions were asked of the candidates. I think,
There was a question.
Dave, you had prepared those questions. I read all of those. Gave a lot of thought to the report of the selection committee, and I want to thank the selection committee for all the work that you did. I know how much time and effort goes into all those meetings, those interviews, and everything else. Thank you, each and all. Then we had the interviews here, and at the end of those interviews, I thought Mitchell did better in the interviews than Morrissey, but I was concerned that they were both out of state. They were both far away. I didn't know if they knew how to be a Sherborn fire chief. So that's when I had felt I needed additional input. I had asked for an assessment center to take a look at both of them to make sure they were both competent. Assessment centers are the new modern best practice for hiring public safety officials anyway, according to the literature. We've had precedent in the town for this in the past when we were hiring Dave Williams. So thank you, Dave, for putting this together on short notice.
Sure.
And it was a great help to me. But like I felt before, the assessments came back pretty close. The objective evaluation indicated these candidates are pretty close. They have relative strengths and weaknesses. So I could go either way. I could support either one. The thing I think that tilts me is that the recommendation of the town administrator. I was part of the board that hired the town administrator, and one of the reasons why we hired him is we wanted a professional who would have human relations, human resources skills. And I spent a lot of energy leading up to the last town meeting trying to give him more authority, particularly over appointments. So I'm committed to empowering the town administrator to have a bigger say, to professionalize the the whole process. And that's why I didn't know until just a few minutes ago where you came out on this thing. But the fact that you're tilting towards Mitchell makes me think that I want to back you up and see how it works out. I mean, I think that's the whole point of having you here. At the end of the day, you're going to be working with him on a frequent and ongoing basis. And if he is the guy that you would have chose, I see my role more in terms of, you know, is that choice wrong? And to me, it's not wrong. I mean, I understand the reasoning from the search committee, so I know it's a close issue. But I think where I'm tilting right now is to support your recommendation.
Great, well, thank you for that. Yes, I'm
Can I say something?
absolutely.
Pardon the interruption. Ron Arrigo, Ivy Lane, and I served on the committee as well. I agree as a committee member that each of these two gentlemen could do the job and do it well. I just want to add one thing to what Fred had said in the way of process, which is on the first go around in this process, we did something that we thought was very important, which was we surveyed the personnel in the fire department to ask what they were looking for if they had a voice, and we were giving them a voice, in the next person who would lead the fire department. And in reviewing those survey responses, it was very clear that what they sought more than anything was a competent leader. So certainly they were mindful of the safety of the town and the person's ability not only to fight fires and lead the men and women to do so, but also the emergency responses. In my estimation, and I am a human resource professional, in seeing both Tim and Fred Mitchell, I found Tim to be far more engaging as a potential leader of the Sherborn Fire Department. Fred did a very nice job in his interview. I was not here when he interviewed with you gentlemen, but in our committee interview, he did a very nice job. But I did not find that he would be that engaging, perhaps, with the fire department, and I felt that Tim was extraordinarily engaging. I appreciate Mr. Williams' reference to him referring to his notes. I would be honest to say that in his interview with us, he was very nervous, noticeably nervous. But I also understood that he was really passionate and interested in the job. And in interviewing people who have notes, I'm fine for them to give the best answer and anticipating what the questions may be, so they give their best examples versus first what comes to mind. So.
Right,
In my estimation, I thought that Tim was exceptional in his ability to lead the department, and I think that's what the men and the women, I think, would appreciate in their next leader. Not to take away from Mr. Mitchell's ability to do the job. I just think that, for me, that was a clear point of differentiation between the two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Bruce, sure, you have something to say?
Well, I think the first thing I'd like to say is I don't speak for the fire department. On fire department matters, I defer to officers, so this is a personal opinion. And I followed this process for a while. And what struck me this evening, I think, is that while you thank the committee, and they did a great job, and you thank the Natick fire chief and the Framingham fire chief, and I think we should thank them. I think that you're missing one very important aspect here, unless I'm mistaken, and you have to consider what the Sherborn firefighters want. And you have to consider that for a few reasons. Number one is that we're not professionals, in a sense. We serve because we want to serve. And one of your objectives is to increase town participation in that effort. And so if you choose someone that is either incompatible or you haven't taken into account the firefighters and the fire department's opinion, I think that would be a grave mistake. Secondly, only the Sherborn Fire Department and their members can decide who's best going to serve them. They're both very professional men, don't get me wrong. And with all due respect to our town administrator, we've got one more important card in the game, and that is when we go into an incident, we count on our leadership, our cadre of officers, our chief, to keep us safe. It's our lives that are on the line. And so I think it's very important that you consider that. An unofficial poll that I take just a very few people overwhelmingly go for Chris.
Tim.
Tim. I keep saying
call him
Chris.
Chris.
It really is Tim. If he gets hired, I'm going to be in big
You're in trouble.
Well, wait a second, which one are you?
I'm sorry, I'm talking about Tim. Tim.
You built it all up and then.
I'm sorry. Candidate number one.
Okay.
And so I think that's a very important consideration. And thirdly, I believe that that Tim has adequate, is a paramedic. He can hit the ground as a running paramedic now, and that increases safety in the town. And that's, I think, a lot of the reason why at least I would like to see this gentleman become our next chief. Although if it turns out differently, you know, I'll serve as I always have, and I'm sure many others will. I think that just about does it, except for one comment. I think that if you vote for a chief, I believe that you should be unanimous about it, and I think you should do it in a reasonable period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir, John Dowse.
In terms of unanimity, I mean, I can go either way.
Right.
I was undecided when I came in here.
Right.
So I'm open to it.
All right. Thank you.
And you are, sir?
Thank you, Ann. Thanks a lot.
What is your rank in the department again?
I'm Jonathan Dowse. I am the Deputy Fire Chief. I've had the pleasure of working beside Neil, with Neil, for the last 8 years, 9 years, actually longer than that. For me, working with Neil, being an officer of this department since the late 90s, what I look at where this department needs to go and stuff, I tend to look at candidate number one, Tim. I look at the EMS side of this house as being a big picture, you know, bringing our ambulance up to the next level. You accepted a donation of some of the equipment that is used by both the intermediate level, which we are at, and the paramedic level, to move the EMS side of the house forward to cover the ambulance. I see the ambulance as a much more regulated area than the fire department. They both have ever-increasing responsibilities and roles. To give you an idea, though, we have an ambulance inspection done once a year. We have an inspector come out from the state, and with no exaggeration, he's here for 3 to 4 hours doing that inspection of that truck. And they go through everything. They look at the engine, they look at the body, they look at the equipment inside the truck, and then they sit down and look at all your paperwork of the ambulance. So it's literally a 3 to 4 hour. One of the deficiencies we had last year, there was a small tear on the brake pedal pad that they wanted us to replace. I mean, when I asked Warren to take a look at it, he scratched his head. That's how minor it was. But that's how thorough of an inspection. We are in a changing time within the EMS world. The Massachusetts is going from a state certification to a national certification, so there's a lot of new things that are coming out that no one's really had a good handle on. So, as I said, I think both the two candidates that we're looking at are excellent. I like their backgrounds, where they started off on call departments, moved up through it, so they have an understanding of the call departments. As Neil said, I can work with either candidate. I look forward to working with either candidate, but as I said, I think I look at trying to improve and having a good, strong EMS person as part of the leadership is important to the department. Thank you.
Thanks very
Can I
much.
ask you a question?
Yes.
We're at a basic
We are-
EMS level?
We are an intermediate level.
We're at intermediate.
What
What's the
we allow
intermediate?
to us to do, and actually the intermediate's going away. There's basic level, which is basically show up, put oxygen, splint, backboard, take vitals, call the hospital and transport the hospital. An intermediate level, I'm allowed to do IVs. I'm an intermediate. So we're trained with IVs. As I said earlier, intubations, I can tube a person, and a little bit more patient assessment and stuff. But giving of fluids to a patient is a big deal, and it makes a lot of difference sometimes.
The sooner you can do that, the better, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But what's the next level beyond
Then
that?
the next level is paramedic.
Isn't there an advanced level in between?
No, intermediate, it goes basic, intermediate, paramedic. A paramedic is now, carrying a 12-lead EKG, where we can put a monitor on the heart, see what the heart's doing. Earlier activation of that is actually with a cath lab at Framingham. We're getting reports as soon as they can get a report, which the medics will actually send ahead of them, that we're actually bringing patients, and they're actually going straight past the ER, going straight to the cath lab because of the skills of the paramedic to identify and notify the hospital that they're coming in with these people. The cardiac drugs that they carry, it's just a whole list of drugs. I think it was, Robert had said, it's a 120-hour training period for a basic and almost 2,000 hours.
For the paramedic, yeah.
And one of the other things is also the continuing ed. Every 2 years, you have to have 28 hours of continuing ed classes. You have to go to the hospital for rounds. You have lectures come in. Basic has a 24-hour refresher. Intermediate has a 36-hour refresher. And paramedic is a 48-hour refresher.
But Chief, what's this ALS stuff that some of my communities have?
One more time, please.
Advanced life
ALS?
support.
Advanced life support.
That's not in between intermediate and,
At the intermediate level, you're considered advanced
ALS.
life.
So
Because of
intermediate is
the
ALS.
drugs, the IVs that you're able to give, and their airway
So
management.
you can give medicine.
I don't give medicine, but I can start an IV.
You can start an IV, but you can't deliver medicine. A paramedic can give the medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there are some limited medications that we can give now, such as EpiPens.
And just to clarify on Tim, he is not able to function as a paramedic in Massachusetts.
No, he has his paramedic license.
But I understood he was not able.
Massachusetts.
He's not, he is certified in Massachusetts?
No,
He is
he has
certified
a-
in Massachusetts.
He has a paramedic certification, but he's not able to deliver paramedic services in
Massachusetts.
Sherborn,
Because we
as
aren't
long as
certified.
it's at the intermediate level.
Oh,
It's
okay.
his
I got you.
license to the intermediate level.
Okay, so what does Sherborn have to do to be able to enable Tim
Is to have probably,
It's equipment?
more, there's some, yes, there's an upgrade of equipment. Actually, the police last year took the emergency medical dispatching
What
trainments.
are we talking about for equipment to realize full value of this paramedic capability?
Well,
Anybody know what that?
it's going to be a meaningful investment. You have to get a life pack, a much more sophisticated defibrillator.
Are we
heart
getting a new-
monitor. It could be $30,000. I think
Oh, okay.
what's really
Yep.
important to remember, though, is, and I mentioned this before, if everything else is the same, I think what's being said here is, from a medical perspective, Tim comes, currently he works on an engine, he responds to medicals.
Yeah.
Fred does not. Fred is a command officer.
He's an EMT, but he's
He's a
not.
basic.
So he's a
So
basic EMT. He can
He's
give
not
the
as well
first
versed as an
aid.
EMT
Right.
in his practice. So
Right.
if
And we
had-
get the paramedic services when we need it from, we outsource that.
But just one other important point becomes, remember, we just had our OEMS inspection, which Darren was
Yep.
referring to.
Yeah.
And as part of that, the town of Sherborn, it was noted that right now, our ALS coverage, all right, is marginal. It's not where we want it to be.
Yeah.
Because during the day, we just don't have too many people
He-
available. So if Tim did come here, and again, everything else was the same, this is a big issue for us in the sense that Tim could come here, start working quickly, and help us in terms of the ALS coverage, which means intermediate level services for us. We'd still use third-party paramedic services for paramedic level calls, cardiac calls, serious breathing issues or serious trauma.
If we got into the paramedic service delivery mode at some point, I'd asked, and I don't know if we had, it was like 5 o'clock, to check with our insurance carrier to see whether there's additional liability exposure that needs to be addressed. And I don't know if you know anything about that.
It certainly is a meaningful commitment of time and resources to get up to that level.
Yeah.
Understand if you get to that level, that you can bill more for the ALS patients or the paramedic patients we provide care. Right now, we pay $250 per use of that third-party
Right. So
vendor. So there is a return for that investment, but there is some work in getting up and running.
We don't really have a real good analysis of the costs and the benefits and so forth. I looked up paramedic versus EMT, and Medfield was going through this discussion at their selectmen's table, and, you know, one of the guy has a blog, and he was, geez, I'll get an analysis, oh no, I don't need an analysis because there was no appetite for it. Oh, now the community wants it, so I'll get an analysis. So the guys back and forth, it sounded like an effort, but that certainly we haven't quite done yet.
Sure.
But it sounds like even without getting to that level, there's added value in having a paramedic on your force who's used to going
I
on
understand,
calls.
yeah.
This is about today, maintaining the
Right.
current level of service at the eye level.
Right.
It is just, would be a future opportunity to go to the paramedic level if it makes business sense.
Yeah.
Service.
Well, let me tell you where I'm at. I agree we should be unanimous in whatever we do here. And I came in here after all these assessments, and I'm of the mind of Paul in terms of supporting David. I did want to put him on the spot, David on the spot, to you know, where were you at? Because it seemed to me everything we looked at, particularly since last week, raised Fred up in my eyes more so. He seemed like the right guy sitting from this chair, looking at the longer-term view of the town, what's in the best interest of the town. He strikes me as more likely to be able to grow where we might need to grow, including dealing with issues like if we want to be paramedic capable, that's a perfect thing to look at on a regional basis. And he's a guy experienced with dealing with regional types of things because he works in this four-pronged community, whatever it is he's doing there. So those types of things jump out at me. But I also respect completely the input of the folks who are out there putting their lives on the line for us on a daily basis, and that's important. On that, though, the comfort thing that David talks about is the same comfort that I gained from looking at Fred and understanding Fred and hearing a lot more of the details behind the assessments and the notes that David took and so forth. So I wasn't there, but I got a lot more firsthand knowledge than most everybody else is likely to get or has gotten. And in that, I guess, you know, yes, we do, absolutely, we do much more emergency medical service providing than we do fighting fires. But we also deal with storms, and we deal with other incidents that things happen that you don't know what's going to happen. And the sense, again, that I further gained was that although Fred isn't as educated in the classic sense as Tim, he's very well educated and experienced in the issues that have to deal with keeping people safe, more so, in my view, from what I've seen, read, and heard, than I think Tim is. That being said, we're in great hands with everybody, so I guess I'm looking for somebody to tell me which way to go. and I think you're the kind of guy that stands firm on where his beliefs, and we're still trying to figure it out. So,
Well, my motion would be to appoint Tim as the fire chief.
okay. And Paul, I don't know what or David, I'll look for I'll second that for discussion purposes. Okay? And David, any other last thoughts on that? I think you've...
I mean, I've been thinking about it for a week,
Yeah.
week and a half, and every resource that I've talked to or everything that I've pawed over, I just had a comfort level with one more than the other, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing for the town. That's your guys' choice. That's
Right.
why it's your vote, not mine.
Right. That's why we're up here, getting paid the big bucks.
And Peter, that's really where I'm coming from on this. I
Yes.
mean, I give a great deal of deference to the people who do
Yes.
what we're asking
I respect
the
that.
new chief to lead. And I give a great deal of deference to their practical sense of what the most important skills and capabilities are. And I've heard very consistent comments from that front, both this week and last week.
Yeah. All right. Paul, any other thoughts?
I could go either way on this. I mean, that's been the problem all the way along.
It's a good problem to have for the town when you think about it. Two good choices. It's great. It's awesome. All right, well, I guess we'll take a vote then. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of hiring,
Tim-
you have to say his name,
Yeah,
Tim?
Tim
Say his
Morrison.
full- Thank you. I knew his name, Tim Morrison.
Not
I wanted
Chris.
to make sure you knew it. Say, raise your hand. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Good. It's done. All right, so we'll get on, David, we'll get on contacting him.
What?
And we'll get on working out the details.
We authorized you last week to.
That's right,
make
to
those
do the
negotiations,
contract.
So we don't need to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, the two.
And we'll come back to you as necessary, we'll come back to the board as necessary on that. All right, so that was a difficult one, but I think we want to have a unanimous front moving on this, so here we are. Thank you very much, everybody, for your
Yeah,
input
thanks.
and all the
It was
hard work
very
to get
helpful.
to this point. It's a
Take a
big
short
step for
recess?
Sherborn. And we can take a quick recess, then we'll get into the appointments. 5 minutes, Pat, because it always turns into 5 minutes. I'll do that.
So, your guy.
What?
He's your guy?
He's my guy now, yeah. Okay, thank you. We are back. Appreciate the patience here. What we're on the agenda next is appointment of staff boards and committees. And we have a whole bunch of committees that we're going to consider doing appointments on, and then, which was to be followed by consideration of sergeant appointment. But given that we've got some of the finest, Sherborn's finest here in the room already and raring to go, I wonder if we could just move that up ahead of the other boards and appointments. And, well, I'm assuming that, but we'll learn that. So why don't we move that up forward, Rick, and deal with what you'd like us to be doing here?
I'd appreciate that, and I'm sure that soon-to-be Sergeant Nolte's family appreciates that. As you're aware, we have had a deficit at the rank of sergeant for the town of Sherborn Police Department for about a year. If you recall, one of our supervisors decided to follow his lifelong dream and go back to Framingham and work as a police officer there. So we lost David Curtis, which is a great loss to the town of Sherborn.
Wait, did you say that people dreamed of going to Framingham?
He did.
It's against the flow, isn't it?
Do you have anything to say about that, David Williams? So we decided to have an interview process to select the next sergeant for the town of Sherborn Police Department. And if I may, I wanted to explain that process.
Please do.
I reached out to some of my peers. I selected Deputy Chief Craig Davis from the Framingham Police Department to sit on the panel. I selected Lieutenant Cara Rossi Caffarelli from the Natick Police Department and Lieutenant Sean Moore from the Holliston Police Department. I selected the three of them, number one, because of their professional experience, and number two, that I have great faith in their ability to identify good quality employees. And then thirdly, none of the panel members were familiar with any of the candidates. So I wanted this to be a fair and impartial process. So we set up interviews. We interviewed 3 internal candidates for the position of sergeant. And ultimately, it was unanimous. David excelled in the interview. He has a great background as a police professional, not just in the town of Sherborn, but in his former employment at Harvard University. We have sent him, actually he had come to me and requested, before we were even talking about having a supervisor opening, he requested to go to a basic sergeant training back in 2012. And I was very happy that he had interest, and we sent him off to that, so he can hit the ground running, so to speak. So I am here before the town to promote Officer Nolte to the position of sergeant for the Sherborn Police Department.
Excellent. That's exciting. And just, we have some reinforcements here this evening.
We do, a few of them. We travel in groups.
There's one issue, Mr. Chairman. He promised to do an Irish jig out in the middle of the floor.
No, I don't think we'll put him to that.
I didn't bring the right shoes.
Yeah. But,
He should say a few things to introduce himself to
sure,
the community.
tell us. Yeah, that's a great idea.
I'd just like to thank the chief and the Board of Selectmen for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it. It's an honor and privilege to work with such a stellar command staff. We work with a great bunch of guys in the department, and I've grown within the town since I started working here. So again, thank you, and I look forward to starting in July.
Great. Well, I'll take a motion to appoint Sergeant Nolte as Officer Nolte as a sergeant.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Congratulations, Sergeant Nolte.
Congratulations.
Your family should be proud. Well done. Very proud of you. That's great. That's terrific. Yeah, excellent. Well, wonderful.
Just
Sure. Anybody else want to talk while you're here? Yeah. Yes.
It's a tradition of policing to have usually a family member pin the badge.
Oh, good.
Fantastic. And we'd like to have David's son pin the badge. Hopefully he doesn't stab him with the chest.
What's your son's name?
Tyler.
Tyler.
So
He's
while
the man.
Tyler's doing that, so you know, David's dad is a former Massachusetts trooper. So
Oh, great. Runs in his blood then, huh?
that's great.
Well, you must be proud, Dad. He's,
How's he doing with the badge there?
Push it all the way in.
he's a paramedic, yeah.
Can I just commend you, Chief, for the choices that you've been making and the promotions that you've done. You've done a lot, I think, to elevate our department to a really nice, well-run department. And I also thank you for setting up that little mini assessment center for evaluating the sergeant process. I think that's the state-of-the-art way of doing appointments. Makes me feel comfortable. He's the right guy for the right job at the right time.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate the whole support.
And I would second what Paul said and also note the increased community involvement that the police department's had in recent years and under your command, and I think that's a great thing. Hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah, some of that involvement, I try to switch cars so I don't get caught, but otherwise it's great. No, we're really feeling good hands. I know I can't say that enough, knowing you guys are on the job. You know, it's a great force. We're very fortunate. The leadership and the.
Thank you.
And the family should be terrific. Thank you. Okay. Well, that brings us to our appointments of staff, boards, and committees. And I know Diane and David worked hard pulling together all of this because we're doing some catch-up on some appointments that held over from last year and so forth. And so what we're doing is we've got a couple of, I think we're going to have at least 2 rounds of appointments. We're doing a batch tonight that you were able to get your arms around that were fairly straightforward or for the most part straightforward. And the ones we're not doing this evening are Ag Commission, Communications, COA, Dry Hydrant, Employee Health Insurance Advisory Committee, Groundwater Protection Committee, Historical District Commission, Personnel Board, Pine Hill Access Road Committee, Revenue Development, Sherborn Open Space, and Traffic Safety. And I think that's, from what I can figure out, we're not dealing with tonight. And we're also not dealing with certain, I'll call them employee or other inspector, staff types of appointments, which we'll get to in the next round as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is that fair? So I think, David, if you could just, I think the way we'll do it, gents, is allow David to read each of the committees and the proposed appointments. We'll go through all of them and then we'll do one vote. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, with maybe
One of the
discussion,
whole
if any
batch,
amendments
and
are
if
needed or
there's any
anything.
discussion, yes. And we can hold aside any that we want.
Sure.
So that they're not grouped into the batch,
Should
okay?
we say hold while he's going?
Yes,
or-
while he's going through it. All right, does that sound good?
Sure. Do you want the committee as it stands now and who's requesting appointment and all that, or just?
No, I think if you just say that take the Bay Circuit, Greenbelt expires 2013, your it's a reappointment effective for such and such a period,
Sure.
okay?
Let's start with Bay Circuit Greenbelt representative. Susie Wheelwright, a reappointment for 1 year. So that term would go to June 15th, 2014.
Yep.
For Board of Appeals, a reappointment for Paul Kersey of 1 year for June 15th, 2014 expiration date. For Alan Rubenstein on Board of Appeals, a 3-year term expiring June 15th, 2016.
All right, before we move off of that, just break tradition a little bit here. And Mike, you're still in there through 2015. I don't know how the heck you do that and this.
You know how good I feel about that, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that will not be for very long.
Okay.
So we'll be doing another appointment before too long. There
Okay.
are a couple of items in front of the Board of Appeals now that I feel
Right.
compel me to stay on a little bit longer, but
Well, you remind me of
as soon as
that
possible.
Channel 5 news anchor guy that did the morning news and then he did the night news every day for, 3 months. I don't know how you do it, but good luck to you.
Just putting my lawyer's hat on for a minute. Number one, Michael is perfectly legal serving on both boards. I know a number of people have asked me about that.
Thank you.
But he is absolutely legal, he's entitled to do that. And secondly, my hat's off to him for the amount of work that he does. I mean, I know you're managing a law firm, you've got a busy law practice, and you're giving all this to the community double.
Thanks, Paul.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're here. Okay, thanks. Moving on, David, yep.
Next is Conservation Commission. I'm not sure if you wanted to hold that out or just go ahead.
No, go
I'd say
ahead.
hold.
Okay, we'll hold that and get back to it.
Okay. Disability Advisory Committee, Linda Durensis for a 3-year term, expiring June 15th, 2015. That's a reappointment. And the reappointment of Frank Hess to a 3-year term, expiring June 15th, 2015.
And so that leaves that committee with 3 vacancies,
Be
if I read your schedule.
3 vacancies.
3
yes.
vacancies. So if anybody's interested in participating, I'll give a shout out as we go along. Okay, I'll give a plug for where we have vacancies. Great.
And
I just want to note, I want to abstain
on that.
the reappointment of my wife.
Okay.
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 On
Or recuse myself, I guess. I mean, I'm delighted that she's serving. It's not, I'm not opposed to her.
keep digging.
That's between you and her, Paul, okay? Not touching that one. Not touching that one. Okay.
For Elder Housing, the reappointment of Joseph Meany Jr. to a 3-year term expiring June 15th, 2016. Martin Waters, reappointment for 3 years, term expiring June 15th, 2016. And a new appointment, Joseph Cashin, for 3-year term expiring June 15th, 2016.
So that's great. We got somebody stepping up, and it looks like they have 1 vacancy still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Energy Committee, reappointing Gino Carlucci, the Planning Board Director, for a 3-year term to June 15th, 2016. Reappointment of Jane Push for a 3-year term till June 15th, 2016. Reappointment of Keisha Lifton to a 2-year term expiring June 15th, 2015. And reappointment of Michael Lesser for a 2-year term expiring June 15th, 2015.
And they have 2 vacancies, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And there may be a third.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that some of these had expired in 2012, some in 2013, and we've made an effort to try to stagger the positions. That's why some of the normally 3-year terms are 1 or a 2-year term to get back on that cycle of a turnover.
Great, I'm glad you are doing that, thanks.
But it looks like there's 3 vacancies on the Energy Committee, is that right?
2,
energy.
and maybe 1 more to come, right?
Well, one has expired in any case.
Oh, no response.
Right. Well,
So that's a 3rd open seat at this point.
if he's not reappointed, he sort of
You didn't
continues.
just read his
over.
name, so.
He carries over,
Does he?
unless he's.
He carries over unless you revoke the.
Unless we revoke him, or he's asked to be removed, right?
Right.
Withdraw from the committee.
So we didn't receive a response from him. So we're not sure whether he wants to be reappointed yet or not. So
So
technically
once
we
we
haven't.
do, just so I understand it, once a term expires, if we appoint replacements for some of the seats on the board, we can simply allow other seats to carry over?
That's what's been happening with a number of these committees that expired in 2012. Their seats expired, and they've been serving on the committee until such time they're acted on, of either pulling them off, replacing, or reappointing.
The state law says that the appointee continues to serve till the end of his term or until a successor is appointed, whichever is longer.
Right, and I remember going through that a few years ago when the board had got delayed in making reappointments on the zoning board. I guess what I'm thinking is just from the standpoint of process and kind of logic, I think it would make more sense, particularly in a situation like this, to either reappoint the person or terminate the seat unless and until they reapply. I mean, if someone hasn't answered the call, do you want to be on the committee again, I don't think there's a lot of sense in carrying them over without at least thinking about it. It's not, now, we have a lot of vacancies on this committee. Maybe we're glad to have somebody who's even, potentially not as active or not as willing to step forward on their own, but also not pulling themselves off the committee. But it just seems like this is a.
Well, why don't we do, in
inconsistent-
that situation, let's, can we try to follow up, and let's hold this one until next week? Okay, on your point, so that
Yeah,
we can
just-
find out, because I'd hate to either pull them off, and I'd hate to reappoint them at
Right,
this stage of the
and
game.
I
So I
agree with
think
you.
we just hold until next week.
But limbo
And-
appointments aren't the best either.
No, so if we don't get any further information on this,
So we holding all of them tonight?
no, just this one, Energy Committee, and if we come across another one like that, all right? So that we just make one final effort to communicate with this individual, all right? Does that sound fair?
Yeah,
to
I
you?
think that's a good way to do it.
That's a great approach, okay.
For Farm Pond Advisory Committee, reappointment of Pat Cassell for a one-year term till June 15th. That should be three-year term, right?
Well, it's 2 years to June 15th, to 2015, or you
Those
have
dates are different on
2014?
my form. It says 2016 on.
All right,
my
what-
June
form.
15th,
Yeah, on my form it says
2016.
216.
I don't know which form I'm looking at anymore.
That looks like a 3-year term, doesn't it?
It
Yeah.
does, yeah, that's a 3-year term.
Yes, it's 3 years.
I'm out of cycle. It should be a 2-year term that I'm looking.
I can do
to
that.
get the
2 year?
cycle- To get the cycle back.
So she would be a 2-year appointment till June 15th, 2015.
Correct.
Right.
All right,
Okay.
yep.
And a reappointment of Jacqueline Martin for a one-year term till June 15th, 2014. And the reappointment of Catherine Rocchio for a 3-year term till June 15th, 2016.
Great. Great, yeah.
Historical Commission, there were two folks here that haven't responded.
So let's hold that till next week and just follow up, because they're gonna wind up with one person on their committee at this stage of the game, right?
Yeah.
So let's hold that one for next week as well.
Can
and
can
see
I
if we
make,
follow up.
I hate to go backwards, but on Farm Pond Advisory, with Pat being a 2-year term, that puts her at 2015, and we already have 3 other members whose terms expire in 2015 on a 7-member
Good catch.
board. That's 4 out of 7 members. That shouldn't be the case. I think Pat, if she's willing to serve, should probably be appointed for a 3-year term.
What say you, Pat? Yeah, she's good.
Up for that? It's fun, isn't it?
Why is Jackie only for one?
Because we only have one other 14.
So we're staggering there. So we'll have 2 in 2016, 3 in 2015, and 2 in 2014 expirations.
Jackie should be another full 3-year.
And you want to be 1 year?
No.
2 years not enough.
That's all we've got.
You got 1 or 3, take your pick, and you're here and she's not.
All right, we'll do 3.
All right.
All right, you're 3. She can always come back
And
next year. and
we'll be dealing with Jackie next year, right?
You've got some other issues coming up, if that's okay.
Was that a
Just what we
threat?
want
What
to
was
hear.
that?
Just what we want to hear.
You can always resign.
Yeah, I guess so.
This is Pat Cassell, 3-year
3-year
term till
term.
2016.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're holding historical
Hold on,
commission.
Historical Commission. Local Emergency Planning Committee. We would be reappointment of Ellen Hartnett, Board of Health, the CM&D Director, Ed Wagner, Police Chief Rick Thompson, David Williams as Town Administrator, Diane Moore as Assistant Town Administrator, and a new appointment, David Curtis,
Okay, and these are
1-year
always
terms.
historically 1-year
till
terms?
June 2014.
Yeah. Great.
Recycling Committee. Reappointment of Charles Tyler for 2 years till June 15th, 2015. Reappointment of Andrea Brennan for a 2-year term till June 15th, 2015. And reappointment of Carol Rubenstein to a 3-year term, June 15th, 2016. There's a new appointment of Rochelle Masters for a 1-year term of June 15th, 2014.
But what does it say if Mr. Vacant wants to be reappointed? Does that apply to,
Where do you see that?
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's a
think that's just,
typo.
yeah, that just looks like a typo.
does that
In
apply,
line 5 under recycling committee.
does that apply to line 4?
No, because he's good through 2014, it looks like.
There, it looked to us that there's a vacant seat. There's
So-
no, the requesting reappointment is not there.
So that's a typo,
Okay.
just a typo. Well, you guys can read, you guys are lawyers, you're good at finding these things. I say that with respect and appreciation.
Aren't you a numbers guy?
I can find stuff too.
But only if it's numbers, is that what you're
No,
saying?
no, I'm a good proofreader.
Peter does this with the numbers.
Sherborn Arts Council, reappointment of Christina Almy for a 3-year term till June 15th, 2016.
Now, we have, oh, I see, minimum and max, never mind. They could take up to 8 more people if I do the math right, or 6 more people, whatever it is, right? 7.
Right.
Yeah, 6, yeah. Great.
Sherborn Tax Aid Committee, a reappointment of Helen Cuddy for a 3-year term till June 15th, 2016.
And none of these, so far, David, are any that jump out at you as some that we should reconsider for
And-
having it sunsetted or whatever its purpose is?
Those are all on hold to be discussed in the
Okay.
next round.
Can I ask a
number
question
of them.
about
Yeah.
the tax aid committee? What does a committee of one do?
We had a background. on it.
Well, there's only one here.
But
Because the others, the term may be not expired.
Or maybe somebody else appoints them?
I just
I
don't
don't know
know.
what it is.
I think somebody
I don't
else.
even know what, yeah, what's the committee? What do they do?
I think that people can donate money when they pay their taxes, and it goes into a fund, and that this committee can then decide who to help with those,
Got it.
those
Okay.
funds.
Good. So it's probably the case that there's members that we don't appoint on here, and that's why it says.
But it's in the book as Elderly and Disabled Taxation Committee, right? That's
Okay.
this group. And it's Helen Cuddy, Rosemary Sorter, and Doug Brody are on it.
Okay.
And
then
the chief assessor and the town treasurer.
Good.
So,
Okay.
right? Because that's what you said, Diane, right? You're calling it taxation committee, or Sherborn Tax Aid Committee, but it's Elderly and Disabled Taxation Committee. Okay, so we
Oh,
have,
if I'd known
so we
that,
have
Peter,
that.
I would've known.
I understand, so. We learned, that's what we're here
It
to
is,
do,
no, this is
right?
excellent.
Okay, good. Next one, David.
Southwest Area Planning Committee,
Yes. You'd think you'd listen to what we said earlier, Mike.
Well, we didn't have another person, so that's okay.
I'm just kidding you.
a reappointment of Gino Carlucci
Yep,
for a 3-year term of June 15th, 2015.
yep.
And a new appointment of Michael Jaimo, June 15th, 2016, which would be a 3-year term.
Glutton for
Yeah,
punishment.
and I just want to ask Grace something. Grace, you do not want to be reappointed, that's my understanding on the swap?
No, I never ran for
Okay.
It
That-
conflicts
Just wanted to
with-
be clear. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
you're good with that? Great.
I sent something in saying no.
Yes, that's right.
That's
Right.
Thank you.
right. And you think this guy can follow in your footsteps, okay?
I didn't hear. I must confess we weren't talking.
Oh.
I think I
Who is it
preceded
that's
her
being
footsteps
appointed?
also.
Oh,
Select
okay.
this meeting? Oh, my
Um,
God.
Who is being appointed? Oh, you'll find it very interesting.
He's done it before.
I think I did it before you did it. I think you appointed me actually to do it.
Oh, sounds
There you
familiar.
go.
Excellent.
So,
They
under,
meet the same time as the executive committee of MAPC,
I see.
so I never make the meeting.
as a note, beside Grace Shepherd, it should say not requesting a
Right.
reappointment, not requesting.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
very
ta-
good.
Town Forest Committee, reappointment of Bob Ambos, 3-year term expiring June 15th, 2016.
Yeah,
And the Western Avenue Intersection Committee, reappointing those members for a term of 1 year expiring June 15th, 2014. And those members are Donald Croshaw, Thomas Ermstrom, Ed Wagner, Rick Thompson, David Bento, and Sean Colleen.
Can we hold that one? That,
Sure.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
want to
that-
discuss it further
I think-
next week?
I think that's one
Okay.
that we need to think about.
Or
Yeah,
next
I think
time.
that was
I agree.
one that could be,
Well, that could go into this whole other discussion,
right,
right,
right.
that we've got, okay, so.
actually, it
so-
is a better fit of the
Right.
other group.
So we're holding for next time we deliberate on this, or a future meeting, the Energy Committee. We're doing Concom tonight, but we're holding till next week. Energy Committee, Historical Commission, and Western Avenue Intersection Committee. We're holding Concom for after this vote, okay?
Gotcha.
And Paul is recusing himself on Linda Durensis for the Disability Advisory Committee. And if I think I have hopefully everything on that, then I'll take a motion to appoint all of those that David
Hang on,
described from
Peter, I'm
this
going to
list.
recuse myself from swap.
Okay, yes, and Mike's recusing himself from swap. So, that being said, given that these gents have recused themselves in one or more places, the holds that I identified, I'll take a motion to approve all of these appointments otherwise that David listed for the terms as he described them.
So moved, other than the one I'm abstaining on.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
recusing.
You're recused on that in this vote, yep. And you're recused on Linda. Does that work? We can take it en masse?
Well, I don't think you quite can do that.
I don't think I can make a motion on something I'm recused on.
Oh, okay, so we're
So we'll
gonna.
take 3 votes.
We're gonna take 3 votes. Paul, I'll take a motion to appoint Mike Gimo and Gino Carlucci, as David described, for the Southwest Area Planning Committee.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Mike, I'll take a motion to appoint the Disability Advisory Committee, as David described earlier.
So moved.
I second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All of the remaining ones that weren't held for either later discussion tonight or future meeting discussion, I'll take a motion to approve as David had read them.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great, that gets complicated. Okay, so that leaves us now back to the Conservation Commission. And we were holding for this discussion, we have folks here tonight as well. David, if you could read, provide any background and then read the proposal that you have listed here. How's that?
The terms that I have for reappointment of Alex Dowse, a 3-year term till June 15th, 2015.
Yeah.
Kelly McClintock, reappointment for
Wait,
3.
that doesn't add up.
2016.
If you had 3
Well,
to
they were a
2013.
2012 term.
It was a 2012
This was a
expiration.
carryover term.
Oh, that's what it is,
Okay.
Paul. Yeah, yeah.
All right, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you. Good.
So Alex Dowse, 3-year term till June 15th, 2015, reappointment. Kelly McClintock, 3-year term expiring June 15th, 2015. Jessica Pettit is a new appointment, June 15th, 2014. That's a 1-year term.
Yep.
Julia Jacobson for a 3-year term, reappointing and expiring June 15th, 2016. Michael Lesser, reappointment to a 3-year term, June 15th, 2016. And Andrea Stiller, 3-year term, expiring June 15th, 2016. That's a reappointment.
So should I do a motion so we have something to discuss?
Yes, we'll have a discussion.
You need
So
a
I'll take a
discussion.
motion and then we'll have a discussion. So,
So moved.
do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second for purpose of discussion.
Yes, so we'll have discussion. So, first we'll have discussion up here, then I'll put it out here, and then we'll come back and see where we wind up, okay? So any thoughts?
Yeah,
or-
well, I had a question, and I had heard one of the people who was just nominated was not regular about attending meetings. And I don't know, I don't have any facts about that, but if there's somebody who's not attending the meetings, I'm not sure there's a reason to reappoint that person.
Okay. We might confirm that when I put it out there, because we have the chair of the committee here.
Exactly.
Okay. Any discussion on your end, Paul, at this stage? Yeah, we're gonna open it up after we have a little discussion. We'll take some input from out there, and then we'll bring it back. Okay.
No, I don't know about attendance records, but I know that some of these people have worked pretty hard. I mean, Michael Lesser, I've seen him everywhere. It's just, so.
Okay.
And it's a thankless job, I gotta say, working in the Conservation Commission. First of all,
Unlike all the other.
There are a lot of thanks for this one, isn't there?
I mean, you're slogging through swamps with poison ivy and ticks and.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. There is certainly a physical hazard in
Yeah,
conservation that we don't
it's,
feel.
It's not a fun job, so I'm glad that we have people who are willing to do it.
Okay, good. Can you respond to the issue Mike raised, sir?
I believe the person you're talking about is Julia Jacobson.
That was something that someone told me.
And she attends to my satisfaction. So I'm
Okay.
happy.
Okay,
What does that mean?
She attends frequently enough that I don't believe it's a problem.
right. And so, Sue Tyler, you've served on this committee, but you're not on the proposed reappointments list.
Well, first off, I'd like to know why that is, whereas our last two conservation meetings ago, we voted to bring forward the 7 names for the 6 lots.
Right.
So my name should be on that list. I put in my letter stating that I wish to remain on it. So to hear that my name's not even on it is one thing. It should be on there.
No, your name was on the list that was presented from the Conservation
Right, but you didn't
Commission.
read my name. What I'm saying is, you didn't even announce my name as even to be considered tonight.
Right. What's-
Correct. I mean, my name was not read.
Right, so we're
It shouldn't
recognizing
be
you
on the
now, yeah.
And as far as the question of attendance, I have to take exception to the chairman here, Stephen Gaskin, as far as Julia Jacobson. To say that someone that has made 3 meetings this year is acceptable is really very disturbing, coming from the chairman of the Conservation Commission, where attendance is very important, and also the attendance at site visits. We're regulating people's property. We are putting conditions on people's property. And to have someone that can only attend 3 meetings in 6 months is not fair to the residents. It's also not fair to me to not have my name read. I've given 4 years. I know the regs and I know the town. The issue with the Conservation Commission and the chairman is the fact that I do speak up. And I do question things. Like as an example, why did the Conservation Commission on June 5th award a student over in the Dover High School funds from the town budget, gave an award, and yet on Wednesday, June 6th, on Thursday, June 6th, it was then on the Conservation Commission. We've had this has happened 2 other times, and I have said and questioned, how can we give away the town's funds with no discussion? And it was done again this year, and I questioned it, and they don't like being questioned.
This was a very small amount of money that we had done the previous year. I wasn't aware there was an issue, and if there is an issue, I offered to pay for it myself, as did the agent. It's just not worth bringing up.
Can I say something about Julia Jacobson?
Sure.
I think she's great. She is a lawyer from Brigham McCutcheon, and I've tried over my years on the board to get lawyers to come forward and serve on boards. It's not easy to get them to come forward and serve. They're busy. They have a lot to do. I'm thankful for the lawyers like Mike who put in the time. But she's also got a background in environmental law. And I felt and still feel that the Conservation Commission would benefit from a lawyer who knows what they're doing on environmental issues. I've had some issues with the Conservation Commission's bylaws and whether they're updated and whether they accurately reflect the state law. We had a lot of discussions on that. So I think it's important to have a lawyer. Admittedly, Brigham McCutcheon is a very demanding firm and requires a lot of hours and a lot of time. But I think the community is well served by having a high-grade lawyer on the Conservation Commission.
And she's there when I need her.
And, you know, we just have no other options out there with that sort of qualification. So I think it's very important.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments as the chair of the committee?
If you'd like me to comment on Susan?
Comment on however you want. We have to make a decision.
Yeah.
My goal is to make a decision from where I sit in what I think is the best interest of the community.
I've written
So
to you all
I
with
think
my
we've seen
issues
that,
with
yeah.
Susan. I don't know that I need to bring them up.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I don't want to do that, yeah.
I'd rather not anybody being criticized or
No.
attacked here.
No, I don't think it's appropriate.
We value every person. We value the contribution that everyone makes. Let's keep this
I
positive.
saw a hand, Grace?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm a little sensitive about this because I seem to have had a recent experience.
Yes.
Was there a public discussion and a vote on the Conservation Commission to dump one of their members and put someone who just requested to be on the list? I understand that there is one person on that list, I don't know any of their qualifications, who recently just asked to be on it, Jessica Pettit. And I also understand that it is possible to be an associate if you're newly involved, though I gather she's been taking the minutes, perhaps that.
She has.
Yeah. So I just wonder what the process is by which a committee decides to get rid of a member. Or the Board of Selectmen decides that someone who wishes to serve is no longer to serve. Is there a process, or is it just?
Well, I think there's a process. I think they had a discussion. I think they came forward with 7. They couldn't come to a consensus of 6 out of 7. They came forward with 7. We've had some other input and feedback, and here we are now trying to make a decision based on what we've been provided by the committee chair, other members affiliated with that, our experience, from my perspective, the experience I have, and so forth. So, you know, it's not, it serves no purpose to serve any laundry, whether it's clean or dirty, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I do know a gadfly can be a pain in the neck. And I do think Susan is the gadfly. And she believes in following the letter of the law.
Yeah.
And the little story that she told is irritating to her, and should be, but maybe it isn't to the town. There have been other such instances. I do understand she's, you know, the gadfly.
No, she's served the community very well and continues to serve the community very well. She's active on the Traffic Safety Committee. She's here at a whole bunch of meetings and adds value. So it's not to say anything negative about Susan. It is how and why we make a decision.
We're trying to keep it positive, and
Yes.
I do intend to vote for Susan on other, she's up for, I think, on
Traffic safety.
traffic safety. I intend to
which we're
vote
taking
for
up.
her.
I think that you should wonder whether her gadflyness has actually been a good thing. Have you talked with some of the other members of the Conservation Commission who actually support her and have supported some of the positions she's taken? I'm not that involved with conservation.
Right.
I just would hope that there's real fairness here.
There's some legal issues too.
That's always said, Paul. What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that
You know,
mean?
No,
Paul, because that is implying me, what does it mean?
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I think it's best that's all we say on that.
okay.
So, I mean,
In other words-
you know, we've been elected to do
I
what we think
respect
is
all
right
of
in
you
the
for
best
that.
interest of the town, okay?
Okay.
And
You
there are a
think you're
variety
right.
of reasons why I come to a decision that I'm gonna take tonight, okay?
Yes.
And I don't care to share those reasons, frankly, but the push
But you
came to
are
shove.
comfortable
But I'm
that
comfortable
there
with
are
the decision
really
I'm
good
making.
reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If you affirm that, I respect that.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Bruce, you had something, or you're?
Well, I think it seems to me like you've already made the decision since.
Well, we haven't voted, so
well,
I'm just
you-
speaking to myself.
The only reason I mention this is that Susan was not on the list of the people that you mentioned. So I'm just wondering if that is an administrative slip or something else.
It's a proposed list of 6 people to to fill 6 slots, basically. That's what it is. And that's what we're gonna vote on, and we'll either get there or we won't. There are 6 positions to fill.
Concom voted to bring forward to you 7 names.
I know, these are the ones proposed for it to fill the 6
Proposed by
positions.
who?
Well, that's been, this is put on a piece of paper based on input from a variety
So
of
therefore,
places.
I'm just trying to verify, therefore you all took a vote.
No.
When the piece of paper was done,
No, the paper was done, I mean, David prepared it for our facility. He puts down based on what he's read and heard. There's been no vote taken.
Just to be
So I don't know
clear,
where he is, I don't know where he
we
is on
got
this.
a list in our package for this meeting. We got an updated list today. We've had no discussions as a board about any of this until today.
How did it go
You-
from
you-
7 to 6?
You were also provided in the packet
With-
with her
with-
application
That's
right.
requesting reappointment.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, we have that.
Right.
Well, we have a recommendation from our
Town
administrative
administrator.
staff.
Yeah.
That was the question. So
Yeah.
the answer is that David made the recommendation to go down to 6.
Correct.
There's only room for 6.
Correct.
Which names got put on this list? David made that recommendation, preparing this, and I got it when I came in at 5:30.
And to point out to Steve and Paul's point before, it turns out Jessica Pettit is an attorney, so it's an additional help with the regulatory side of things, I guess.
Right. All right, so,
Yeah, Mike, you may not have been aware before you were on the board, you probably heard about it, but the bylaw didn't square with state law. There was all these discrepancies.
Well, remember, it was fixed at town meeting.
Yeah. we-
It's
we-
Jim Murphy who fixed it that night. He sat there and did brilliant lawyering, and I sat and watched.
It was quite an effort. You were involved also.
I was sitting there and watching, and Jim Murphy had come prepared, and he got every point right, and they all agreed with him. It was beautiful to watch.
great. Great.
We all like Jim Murphy, too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give credit where it was due.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion here at this table? Then I'll take a motion to approve the appointments as listed on this schedule.
I already made the motion.
No, you made the motion, yeah.
Okay,
So I guess we're ready to vote.
second,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we second for discussion, so I
Okay.
guess we're looking for a vote. All those in favor? There you have it. Okay. So that ends up our appointments for this evening, David. So we're going to do it the next full-blown meeting, right? So as we get next to the administrative reports, we'll do a whole bunch at the next full-blown meeting, right? That'll take up a lot of time. Thank you. All right. So you have other meeting topics. I think I'd like to see the police chief, and I asked him to come in and talk about his time away. He was at a 3-week training seminar, I don't know what, and he'd be happy to come in and talk to us about that.
Yes.
Okay, so we'd want to get him on there for that, all right? So we want appointments at an upcoming meeting, we want a police chief. Next week's meeting, Paul, can you make a 9 o'clock to just do warrant only? We might add in some of those
Staff appointments.
staff appointments.
When?
Next Friday morning?
Friday, June 28th.
Yeah, it's because you can't do next Thursday night, right? And we have a big warrant to do, so if you could do,
Probably. I have a special town meeting that night.
so you might be,
When is this?
next Friday morning, would you be able to do next Friday morning?
Friday morning, probably.
Well, because we can't do the Thursday night
Can't do
unless it's
Thursday
just the
night.
2 of us, but we'd be doing it without Paul, seeing we could do it with a big warrant
Is
only.
it just a warrant?
Yeah, and skip the,
Just threw in some appointments.
well, we'll hold those off if you're not here.
Well, I have a special town meeting in a town. I got
Right.
hundreds of people that I have to, I can't change the special
Oh,
town
understood,
meeting.
understood.
That, yeah.
But because I'm going to be here rather than.
What time will we do this on Friday morning?
9 o'clock would be the,
That'll give me time to go to Nantucket.
We do 8 o'clock?
you do 8 o'clock? I could do 8 o'clock, because I'd like to go south myself, so I'm close to
Are we
the water.
invited?
Yeah, sure, we could do our meetings down there. Bring a little video
8
camera.
o'clock next Friday.
8 o'clock Friday morning, can you do 8 o'clock? I know that's cow feeding time
Yeah,
or something.
How about 8:30?
8:30.
8:30 it is.
The cows will be fed.
And our goal will be to be done by 9,
And-
okay?
Okay.
And Mike Giammo's going to come over and feed the cows? Is that
That'll
what I
be
heard
what
you hear?
I do, Paul, exactly.
So we're gonna do the big warrant, and we'll do some staff appointments to be determined, but
Okay.
assuming we can do them, just a pretty boilerplate stamp on it, okay? The other thing, David, I don't know if you have any upcoming events, but one I remember is this weekend, is the wine tasting for the community center, right? That's Saturday night.
I have the 8th grade graduation Sunday
Oh, no kidding.
at the middle
Excellent.
school.
Sunday.
Wow, congratulations to all 8th graders.
Yeah, that's,
Excellent.
that's an important age. Okay, anything else? I have nothing else to add, so,
On the topic of community matters, if anybody's been admiring my tie, this was a Father's Day gift, and it is a fundraiser of the Dover Sherborn hockey team. And I believe they're still for sale, I don't know, but if not, you can,
well, that's the point. He showed that to
He-
me.
he
and I
has no
said,
idea about
My
these."
daughter was the goalie for the girls' hockey team. And you
she's
think
too
I
busy
got
to
that
buy you a
for-
tie, Peter.
No.
Michael, all meeting long, I've been admiring your tie.
There you go.
Thank you for
It's the-
explaining
It's the
it.
DS logo here,
You gotta get one.
the Raider.
Man, I have a little talking to my daughter. Yeah. Anything else, gentlemen?
That's it.
So I think we're gonna adjourn to executive session to talk about litigation and not coming back to open
You have to make a
session.
finding that it would compromise our strategy to be talking in public.
Okay, you guys are the lawyers on how to word it properly, so.
No, Mike's right. You have
Yeah.
to add that one last part in. The reason you're going into executive session to discuss pending litigation is because it could jeopardize your strategy.
Okay, so,
I mean,
Why-
jeopardize your position.
Why can't we discuss it in public?
well, we have our town council here. I think we wanna go to,
I mean, we're not even a party to the litigation.
Well, we are, Paul. The town is a party to the litigation. The town owns the land. The town is a part of the litigation. I believe this is something we can discuss and should discuss in executive session. There may be times when we want to have an open session about other aspects of this, but as far as the litigation strategy goes, I don't think we need to do that in public, and I don't think it would be, I think it would be detrimental to the town to do it in public.
All right,
But it's up to the chair whether.
all right, so I'd like to go to the executive session, so,
I'll follow your lead.
all right, so I have to do a roll call vote to go to executive session. Mr. Durensis?
Aye.
Mr. Jaimo?
Aye.
Mr. Caruso? Aye. So we're adjourning for executive session, not to come back into open session.
Just for the record, this is the Cannon versus.
Cannon versus the Town of Sherborn ZBA and Planning Board. Thank you. Cannon et al.
Particularly the town of Sherborn.
Yeah. And, okay, so off we go. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a long night. Appreciate it.